Discussing the subjective paper. Now question number second is, first for the multiple choice questions. Now question number second is, Alpha and Beta Tires Limited, an Indian company. Alpha and Beta Tires Limited is an Indian company engaged in manufacture of tires in Andhra Pradesh and has adopted Ind AS and adopted what? Ind AS as on 1/4/2016. The following particulars are provided for the year ended 31/3/20. These particulars have been provided for the year ended 31/3/20. Net profit as per profit and loss account is rupees 20 crores. Now net profit as per profit and loss account is rupees 20 crores after debit and credit of the following items. Depreciation rupees 18 crores. Included in the depreciation is rupees 3 crore being amount provided in revalued assets. So when we compute the book profits, whatever amount of depreciation is debited, the same is added, and the depreciation excluding what revaluation will be what? Reduced. So 18 crores will be added and 15 crores will be reduced because 3 crore is on account of revaluation. Interest charge on delay in remittance of TDS is 20 lakh rupees. Now this basically will be covered under the ambit of income tax, and as per the explanations to which has been given in section 115 JB, and the same will be what? Added back while computing the book profit. Then share income from AOP in which the company is a member, rupees 50 lakhs. The tax on AOP is charged at MMR. So this share income, since it is taxable at MMR, the same will not be subject to what? The minimum alternate tax. Therefore, share income in AOP will be what? Reduced. Amount of rupees 6 crore withdrawn from revaluation reserve on account of revaluation of the assets. So the amount withdrawn from revaluation reserve to the extent of disallowance of depreciation on account of revaluation will be reduced while computing the book profits. Then the application of financial creditor for corporate insolvency resolution process has been admitted by the Hyderabad bench of NCLT and under IBC. And they have provided brought forward losses and unabsorbed depreciation, because here the NCLT has accepted the application under IBC. Therefore, brought forward losses as well as the unabsorbed depreciation, both will be what? Reduced while computing the book profits. Then items which have been credited to OCI, which is not to be reclassified to profit and loss, which has not been reclassified as profit and loss. Here it is remeasurement of defined employees retirement benefit plans, rupees 50 lakhs. So this 50 lakhs will be added back to compute the book profit, and revaluation surplus of property, plant and equipment. The same will be taxable when these property, plant and equipment is sold or retired. So therefore, no adjustments will be made of this 1 crore rupees. Then transition amount, credit balance is 5 crores, out of which capital reserve is 50 lakhs. So 5 crores minus 50 lakhs, that will be adjusted in 5 equal installments. Tax payable under the regular provisions have been provided as 0.73 crores. Now we are required to compute the alternate minimum tax and amount of the MAT credit, which is required to be what? Carried forward here. So net profit as per the profit and loss account is 20 crore rupees here. Then whatever depreciation has been debited to profit and loss account, the same will be added, and depreciation excluding revaluation will be reduced. So basically 3 crores is on account of revaluation here, which depreciation disallowance. Next is about interest charge on delay in remittance of income tax. That will be added back because explanation 2 to section 115 JB, the amount of income tax basically is includes interest which has been charged under income tax. Then about next adjustment is share income from AOP in which the company is a member, that will be what? Reduced. Then amount of 6 lakhs withdrawn from revaluation reserve, here 3 lakh rupees will be reduced to the extent of disallowance on account of revaluation. Since the company has made a application under IBC, NCLT has accepted the same. Here, what brought forward loss or unabsorbed depreciation, both will be reduced. Therefore, business loss is 8 crores and unabsorbed depreciation is 3 crores, so 11 crores will be reduced. Since Alpha Beta's Tires Company, against which an application for corporate insolvency resolution process has been admitted by NCLT, therefore will be getting the benefit of aggregate of the amount of the brought forward losses and the unabsorbed depreciation while computing the book profits for the purpose of MAT. Then items which have been credited to OCI, which will not be reclassified to profit and loss. So first of all, that will be added. That is remeasurement of defined retirement benefit obligations, 50 lakh rupees. But revaluation of property, plant and equipment, the same will not be added back. Transitional amount they have provided 5 crores, which includes capital reserve, that will be reduced, and this 4 crores and 50 lakh rupees will be adjusted in 5 installments. So this year's installment will be 90 lakhs. This way our book profits works out to be, this is basically book profits. Then we calculate the MAT liability at rate of 15% of the book profits. We add what? Surcharge, since your book profits exceed 10 crore rupees at rate of 12%. And then whatever is the tax payable, that will be increased by HEC. Then we have to compare with the income tax. Income tax is 73 crores. Therefore, the remaining amount will be allowed as a MAT credit. MAT credit will be 1 crore 3 lakh 46,720. So this was one question which was asked for 10 marks, computation of book profits here and MAT credit also. Now we'll be discussing our second question. Second question of the subjective paper. Now this is for 6 marks. Supporting the girl child, a charitable trust is registered under 12AA of the Income Tax Act. On 1/4/2019, it got merged with the Messrs Ananya Private Limited, which is company engaged in manufacturing of stationery items. All the assets and liabilities of the erstwhile trust became the assets and liabilities of Messrs Ananya Private Limited, who is not entitled for registration under 12AA of the Act. So therefore, they will be liable for the exit tax, because it is merged with the entity which is not liable for registration, which is not entitled basically for registration under 12AA of the Act. The trust appointed a registered valuer for valuation of assets and liabilities. From the following particulars, including the valuation report, calculate a tax liability ends of trust arising as a result of merger. Now they are saying that the stamp duty value of the land is rupees what? 15 lakhs. How the land is sold in the open market, and it would fetch, that is the open market value is what? 17 lakhs. The book value of land is what? Rupees 20 lakhs. So here the fair market value would be higher of rupees 17 lakhs, that is the price it would fetch in the open market, or the stamp duty value. So therefore, here 17 lakh rupees will be considered. What we have to pay here, tax is to be paid, accredited tax on the accredited income. The tax basically is to be paid at rate of 34.944%. So we'll be discussing this. Then 75,000 equity shares of EDM Limited is traded in Bombay Stock Exchange. The lowest price and the highest price on the date of merger has been provided, and the book value has also been provided. So here we have to value it at the valuation will be done of these equity shares on the basis of what? The average of the highest and the lowest price. And about the preference shares, we have to value the same at the open market value, that is the fair market value which fetch on the date of the merger. Corpus fund, the same is not a liability. Outside liability is 90 lakhs. Provision for taxation will not be reduced here, and liabilities in respect of payment of various utility bills, that will be deductible. So we have to find out the accredited income according to section 115 TD. On the accredited income, the trust will be liable to pay the tax at rate of maximum marginal rate. Here it is 34.944%, that is 30% plus 12% surcharge plus 4% HEC. And what is the accredited income? that is the aggregate value of the total assets on the date of the merger, whatever is the aggregate value of the liabilities on that date, which is calculated in the prescribed manner. The same will be reduced to find out the accreted income on which tax is to be levied. So as per section 115 TD, you have to write accreted income of supporting the girl child is a charitable trust registered under 12AA, which is merged with the entity which is not entitled for registration. The same would be taxable at rate of 34.944%. And the accreted income is what? The aggregate value of the assets minus the total liabilities computed in accordance with the prescribed manner. Now, how you will be finding out the aggregate fair market value of the assets on the date of that event, that is the date of merger? Land being an immovable property, we have to take the fair market value will be what? Higher of the price that it would fetch in the open market or the stamp duty value. So higher value will be taken here, 17 lakhs. Then in respect of quoted shares, as I already told you, you have to take the average of the lowest and the highest price on the date of merger. So average is what? 85 plus 75 divided by 280. So its value will be 60 lakh rupees. For preference shares, you have to take the fair market value which it would fetch in the open market on the date of merger, that is 44 lakhs. So this is about the total liabilities. From this, outside liabilities will be reduced to the extent of 90 lakhs, and liabilities in respect of various utility bills, that is 6 lakhs, the same is will be reduced. So here the accreted income works out to be 25 lakh rupees, and tax will be calculated at rate of 34.944%. So tax on accreted income, you must know how to compute the same because it has been asked for 2 to 3 times in the examination. So this was about one question which we have asked, tax on accreted income from trust. It is of 6 marks. Now the next question is of 6 marks. The following are the particulars of income of 3 investment funds. They are alternate investment funds. Business income has been provided, capital gains have been provided, and income from other sources have been provided. Now, as you are aware of the fact that business income, the same will be taxable in the hands of what? Investment fund. And in case there is a loss, that will be carried forward by the investment fund. Then capital gains and income from other sources, the same will be taxable in the hands of the unit holders. Now they are asking you to compute the total income of investment fund and the unit holders, assuming that each of the investment fund has 40 unit holders having each 1 unit. There are 40 unit holders having 1 unit each, and income from the investment in investment fund is the only income of the unit holder. So if the investment fund C has the following income components in the next year, what would be the total income of the fund for that year that has been provided? Now, first of all, what about the business income? When we calculate the income from AIF, the business income will be taxable in the hands of the investment fund, and rest incomes will be taxable in the hands of the unit holder. So here the business income from first is nil. The number B is what AIF B, 4 lakh rupees is the income, and in C it is loss. So therefore business income will be this much, and the same will be taxable in the hands of the alternate investment fund. Then about the unit holders here, this is a 40 lakh is the income, and there are what 40 unit holders, so that will be divided, and 1 lakh rupees will be the basically the income, which will be consisting of here 80,000 rupees and 20,000 rupees. That is capital gains and income from other sources. 80,000 and 20,000. In the next case, it will be what 70,000 and 20,000. That is capital gains and income from other sources. Here, this loss will be adjusted. 16 lakh minus 4, 12 lakh rupees divided by 40. So it will be the income from other sources to the extent of 30,000 rupees. Now, about this loss of the long-term capital gains, the same will be what carried forward by the unit holder in case if the units are held by the unit holder is for more than say 12 months, then only this loss will be entitled to be carried forward. In the next year, we are having business income 4 lakh rupees, capital gains 18 lakh rupees. Capital gains is 18 lakh rupees. And to this business income, the same will be taxable in the hands of the investment fund in the next year. This business income will be taxable in the hands of the investment fund. Relating to what? The capital gains loss. If the units are held for more than a year, then this loss will be adjusted to the extent of the loss, and the remaining amount, that is what? 6 lakh rupees. That will be taxable in the hands of the unit holders. Besides this, income from other sources is there. The same will be taxable in the hands of the unit holder. So in this case, in case of investment fund C, the business loss of 4 lakhs will be set off against the income from other sources of 16 lakhs, which we have discussed, and loss of 12 lakh rupees under the head capital gains. The same cannot be set off under any other head. The same is to be carried forward by unit holder for set off in subsequent years if the units are held for more than 12 months. However, if units are held for less than 12 months, then the loss arising therefrom will neither be carried forward by the unit holder nor by the investment fund. And the brought forward capital loss here of 12 lakh rupees, the same can be set off against the income of 45,000. Here 30,000, 45,000, the same will be adjusted in case the units are held for more than 12 months. Then otherwise the capital gains loss will be ignored. And business income would be taxable in the hands of investment fund, and income from other sources will be taxable in the hands of the unit holder. So this way, it will be 15,000. That will be taxation in the next year. So this question was there for 6 marks. That was taxation of the alternate investment fund. Amendment has been made in relation to capital gains loss, which is allowed to be carried forward if the units are held for 12 months or more. And in case of, say, business loss, the same will be carried forward and set off only by the investment fund, and will not be unit holders will not be getting the benefit of the carry forward of such business loss. Now next question is, Mega Tea Limited is a tea company engaged in cultivating and processing tea in its factory for marketing. Now Mega Tea Company is a tea company and engaged in cultivating and processing tea in its factory for marketing. The company distributed dividend of rupees 25 lakhs to the shareholders. The AO is of the view that the entire dividend is subject to DDT. So they are of the view that this 25 lakh rupees which has been distributed to the shareholders, the same must be subject to the dividend distribution tax. The company, however, contended that the tax on dividend declared by it, in this case, is nothing but a tax on agriculture income, and the legislative competence for taxing agriculture income lies with the state government and not the central government. The company is saying that what we are distributing is the agriculture income. Then on appeal to the appellate authority held that since the company is carrying on cultivation of tea, which is the agricultural process, and also processing of tea, which is the industrial process, here they have divided 40% is the business income and 60% is the agricultural income. And only on the 60%, this tax is not to be levied, and 40% on business income, DDT is to be levied. Now discuss the correctness of the otherwise of the contention of the appellate authority. Now fundamentally what the consideration here is whether the dividend distribution tax is to be levied on the entire amount of the dividend to be distributed, or only on the 40% of the amount of the dividend which is to be distributed, basically being a business income. So here this case was considered by the Supreme Court in Tata Tea and others, and they cited the judgment which was there in Bacha F. Gujdar's case. And they said that when we see the relationship between the company and the shareholders, so the foundation basically rests on what? The dividend foundation. Basically it rests on the contractual relationship between the company and the shareholder. And in hands of the shareholder, dividend is not a revenue which is derived from land. Therefore, it cannot be regarded as an agricultural income in the hands of the shareholder. Hence, the company though may be engaged in what? Agricultural activity, in hands of the shareholder, the income which is so distributed cannot be regarded as what? The agricultural income. Therefore, the company will be liable to pay dividend distribution tax on the entire amount of the dividend, which is to be what? Distributed to the shareholders. Basically, courts said that dividend is not a revenue derived from land, and therefore it cannot be termed as what? Agricultural income in the hands of the shareholder. Hence, despite the company being involved in the agriculture activities, in the shareholder's hand, the income is only dividend and not the agricultural income. Therefore, on the entire amount of dividend, the distribution tax will be levied. So this was asked by us. It is an important case law, can be asked in examination. That is for 3 marks. Now one comprehensive question is there. On 1/4/2019, Binu Limited of Delhi, a domestic company that engaged in manufacturing of metro rail seats, they converted into LLP, named Measures Soumya LLP, fulfilling what all the conditions which have been specified in 47(13)(b) of the Income Tax Act. Some of the relevant information is given below in respect of Binu Limited as on 31/3/19. VRS expenditure incurred by company during the previous year 17-18. The company was allowed deduction of 4 lakhs for these 2 years. Now when this company is converted into LLP, here because of the reorganization, the remaining expenditure will be allowed in the hands of the LLP. So here VRS expenditure is allowed in 5 equal installments. So 2 have been claimed by the company, remaining will be claimed by the LLP. Then 150 equity shares in Toyo Limited, an Indian company listed in Bombay Stock Exchange, acquired for 1900 per share. On conversion, of these shares became the property of the company. In case if subsequently that these shares are sold, then capital gains will arise in the hands of the LLP. Besides other assets transferred to Measures Soumya LLP, Measures Binu Limited has also transferred 2 factory buildings. On 1/4/2019, Soumya LLP has leased out 1 factory building along with plant and machinery and consolidated lease rent of 50,000 per month. So in case if letting is there of building and along with the plant and machinery, and letting is inseparable from letting of the plant and machinery, the rentals income so derived will be taxable as income from other sources. Now during the previous year, Soumya LLP earned a profit of 25,40,000 after debit and credit of the following items. They have given the profit earned is what? 25,40,000. So we will be discussing one item every time. So first of all, they said that Measures Binu is a working partner of the LLP. Binu is a working partner of LLP. He is also a working partner in another firm. He is actively engaged in the business of both the firms, and he gets salary of 55,000 per month from Soumya LLP, and same is authorized by the deed. So here whatever remuneration is paid to the working partner, the same will be added back, and it will be allowed as per the provisions of section 40B. So on first 3 lakh of the book profits, it's 90%, or 150 which has more. Balance book profits is 60%. We'll be computing the same. Then next is Mr. Ayushman. An employee was deputed to work in the client's office in Mumbai for 3 months. The LLP has paid his salary in cash for the month when he was in Mumbai, amounting rupees 3,45,000 net of TDS and other deductions. Since he did not have a bank account in Mumbai, the payment was included in the amount of salary debited to profit and loss account. Measures Ayushman is normally posted in Delhi, being the headquarter. Now, in case we have seen an exception under Rule 6DD, in case if an employee is posted at a place other than the normal place of duty, then we can make a cash payment to him here, and in this particular circumstance, this cash payment will not be disallowed. Therefore, we have to write a working note on the same. Whatever the salary paid to Ayushman, relating to it, we have to write the working note as per the provisions of section 48(3). Disallowance is attracted in respect of expenditure for which payment of cash exceeding 10,000 is made in a day, aggregating to a person. In a day, 10,000 rupees is made. Otherwise, then by way of account pay check or account pay bank draft or use of ECS or other electronic mode. And here it is covered in the exception. Therefore, he is temporarily posted at a place where the bank account is not there. Therefore, the same will not be disallowed. Next adjustment, see, amount of 25,000 rupees was paid as penalty for non-fulfillment of delivery conditions of a contract for sale for reasons beyond the control. So this is a penalty which is not penal in nature. This is not a penalty which is penal in nature. It is, say, in normal course of business, therefore incurred in normal course of business, therefore it will be deductible. If a penalty is penal in nature, that will be what? Disallowed. So here it's for breach of contract, it's a general business commercial loss, and the same would be allowable as deduction. So penalty for non-fulfillment of delivery conditions is not on account of infraction of the law. The same is not a penal in nature, therefore it will be deductible. Next was about the LLP has provided an amount of 18 lakh rupees being the sum estimated as payable to workers based on the agreement to be entered with the workers union for periodic wage revision. The provision is based on fair estimation with a reasonable certainty. So when the provision is based on fair estimation with a reasonable certainty as per ICDS 10, that provision will be what? Allowed as deduction. So whatever provision is based on fair estimate of wage and that is also on the reasonable certainty of revision, that will be allowable as deduction because of reasonable certainty of recognition of provision is there. Therefore, same is deductible, hence no adjustment will be required for the same. Then they say depreciation which is debited will be added. Gratuity provision is 6.5 lakhs. Gratuity actually paid is what? 4 lakh rupees, and the same has been debited to provision account. So here, if any provision is made in respect of the gratuity, then as per the provisions of section 40A7, whatever extra amount of provision is made, it will be what? Added back. So 2,50,000 will be added back. Then about the profit on sale of shares of Measures Toyo Limited, 1,27,500. These shares were sold on 31/5/2019. Highest price quoted on the stock exchange as on 31/1/2018 was 2,500 rupees per share. So their actual cost was 1,900. They have been sold for 2,750. We'll be computing the capital gains. First of all, whatever is the profit on sale of shares which has been credited to the profit and loss account, the same will be what? The reduced while computing the PGBP. So this is reduced, that is profit on sale of shares, and capital gains will be computed separately. How the capital gains will be computed? Here, whichever is lower, this is 2,500. Amongst them first and second, that is the actual cost section, and the fair market value or full value of consideration which is lower. Higher amongst these two will be the cost section. No benefit of indexation is given under section 115, 112A. So it will be 250 rupees per share will be the capital gains. How many shares have been sold? They acquired these shares. These shares have been acquired. So we'll be computing the capital gains on this basis. 150 shares have been acquired. So this will be the capital gains. Capital gains in excess of 1 lakh rupees, thereof will be what? Chargeable to tax. So this capital gains works out to be 37,500 rupees. So we have computed this. Then repairs of plant and machinery, 59,000. This will be added back while computing the PGBP because the rental income is taxed under income from other sources. So repairs of plant and machinery, that will be added back. And factory license fees will be added back. And this legal fees paid for drafting the agreement, the same will be what? Added back. So these three items are added back. And then further they say that further it has been provided that LLP sold import entitlements 1,50,000. The same has not been credited. It will be income as per the provisions of 28 clause 3A. Therefore, it will be added back while computing what? The book profits. So when these adjustments are made, book profits works out to be 26,77,500. Then we will be providing the remuneration. On first 3 lakh of book profits, it will be what? 90%, 270. And on balance of book profits, that is 23,77,500, it will be about 60%. So this way, here we will be finding that the actual remuneration as per deed is less, so that will be allowed. This will result in PGBP. Then about the income from other sources, whatever lease rent has been derived here. Look, whatever lease rent has been derived, that will be seen. Lease rent is 50,000 per month. Depreciation as per P&L account has been provided, and depreciation as per the income tax rules has also been provided, and including depreciation on assets given on lease, that will be reduced, and it does not include what? Depreciation on the car, and car depreciation will be allowed to the assessee. So car depreciation, the same will be allowed to the assessee, and other depreciation will be allowed. Then we have lease rent, depreciation on assets which are given on lease, and these expenditures will be reduced to work out the gross total income, and that gross total income becomes the total income. So this was a comprehensive question. Working notes are very, very important. You have to write the working notes, and they are important. So this way, adjustments are to be made here. So other information which has been provided on debt restructuring, they have said that the company bank has converted unpaid interest amounting rupees 9 lakhs, and the same is payable in 3 installments. So 3 lakh rupees will be allowed as deduction as per the provisions of section 43B if outstanding interest is converted into loan when the loan is repaid. And Binu is a working partner, has brought a car which is registered in his own name, and car is used exclusively for the purpose of business. So here registered ownership is not required. Car is used for the purpose of business, therefore the same will be depreciation on the same will be deductible. And depreciation on other assets, adjustments are made. Import entitlements we have already seen. So this way, this was a comprehensive question covering 14 marks which we have discussed. The adjustments are to be made. Working notes are to be you have to write those working notes properly, because working notes also play a very, very important role while computing the total income. And when marks are given, half percentage of the marks are of what? Working notes. Now the next question is the AO empowered to assess or reassess an income which is chargeable to tax and has escaped assessment in case in which is pending before the appellate tribunal? So under section 147, third proviso, it has been provided that the assessing officer can assess or reassess the income which is chargeable to tax and which has escaped assessment, other than the income involving what? The subject matter of any appeal, reference or revision. So if the income which is escaped assessment is a subject matter of appeal, reference and revision, then it will not be possible for the AO to initiate proceedings under section 147. For other matters, he can what? Initiate the proceedings under section 147. Then the next question is, can AO issue a notice under 148 to reopen the assessment on order on the same grounds on which CIT has issued a notice under section 263 of the Act? So AO here cannot issue a notice under 148 to reopen what? The assessment on the same grounds on which the Commissioner has issued a notice under 263 of the Income Tax Act. As per the third proviso of 147, same reasoning, the AO can assess or reassess an income which is chargeable to tax and which has escaped assessment, other than the matters involving what? The subject matter of appeal, reference or revision. Therefore, if the income relates to a matter which is subject matter of revision, AO cannot issue income escaping assessment notice in that case. Next is, a cash of rupees 25 lakh was seized on 12/9/2019 in a search conducted as per 132, and the assessee moved an application on 27/10/2019 to release such cash after explaining the sources thereof, which was turned by the department. Now assessee seeks your opinion on the following issues. can department withhold the explained money? And if yes, and to what extent and to what period? So fundamentally, as per section 132B, they say that in case if you explain the source of any asset, you can make an application to the AO explaining the source of the application of source of the acquisition of the asset within a period of 30 days. The same can be made within a period of 30 days from the end of the month in which the asset was seized for release of the asset. And then the AO, with the previous approval of the chief commissioner or commissioner, can release the asset after recovering his existing liability under the Income Tax Act, if you explain the source. And in case if the asset, this asset, where source is explained, must be released within 120 days from the date of the last authorization of the search. So they are asking when is to be released. Here, the asset is to be released within 120 days from the conclusion of the search, that is last authorization for the search. So in this case, since the application was made to the AO within 30 days from the end of the month in which the, the asset was seized, therefore, after recovering the existing liability, the asset must be released within a period of 120 days from the last authorization of the search. Then one question was there, he examined that the jurisdiction of AO cannot be objected by the assessee. The statement is not false. Assessee can question the jurisdiction of the assessing officer, but the same must be within the prescribed time limit as per the provisions of section 124. Here, in case a return has been filed under 139(1), then the assessee can object the jurisdiction within 1 month from the date of service of the notice under 142(1) or 143(2) or before completion of assessment, say whichever is earlier. So after completion of assessment, the jurisdiction cannot be changed. And in case no return has been filed, then within the expiry of the time allowed by the notice under 142(1) or 148 or issuance of notice under 144, which I will say earlier, they can challenge the jurisdiction. And in case if a search has been conducted under 132, or say books of accounts or other documents or any assets have been requisitioned under 132A, then whenever the notice has been issued under 153A or 153C, within a period of say 1 month from the date when he is served with a notice or before the completion of the assessment, whichever is earlier, he can challenge the jurisdiction of the AO. Then in case when the challenge has been made, the issue will be decided by the DGIT or CCIT or Principal Director General or Principal Chief Commissioner or Commissioner or Principal Commissioner as the case may be. And in case there is a dispute between them, then it will be decided by the CBDT. So this was our paper, chapter 9 to 17. We have discussed a bit fast about these questions, which are subjective questions. And it's a very, very important that you write your working notes properly. And point-wise answer is to be mentioned. Please remember the same fact that section number as such is not important, but you mention the provisions correctly. Correct provisions are important. Working notes are very important. And give space, proper presentation, so that it is visible at a time when we are evaluating the copies. Writing in paragraphs will not serve any purpose. You have to write the answers point-wise. You have to write. You can produce your own language there, but the thing is, whatever you are writing, that must be clear from this point. Okay. So next paper, you will be discussing about our indirect taxes, remaining portion of goods and services tax law. Then we'll be going for the remaining portion, that is international taxation in this, and the TDS and other provisions in our next paper. So please do write your papers, and we are evaluating the same. Whatever deficiencies are there, we are mentioning there in your answer sheets also.